Hey everybody, this is Lisa from Simple Family Farm. Today we're going to be unboxing my seeds for produce that I'm going to be growing this season. I know it seems a little early, but really it's kind of late for people to be ordering seeds, especially if you're more of a commercial grower and you're growing larger quantities. Usually we start ordering our seeds in January. It's one of the things that we enjoy doing in the winter is looking through the catalogs and making decisions on varieties and things like that. It just so happens that this year, even when I got online in January, the company that I typically shop with was out of so much stuff. They were out of varieties that I wanted. A lot of things were back ordered. So even I was late getting my orders in at the beginning of January. So I was lucky that I was able to get a bunch of things that I wanted. However, I did need to order tomatoes primarily from another vendor. And I've never ordered from them before, but we ordered from Totally Tomatoes this year, which, is totally awesome. And they did have a lot of the varieties that I was looking for. So we will find out if these seeds are comparable to what I typically get from Johnny's. And Johnny's is usually who we purchase most of our seeds from. Now this year in particular, Johnny's right now at least is only selling to commercial growers because there was a huge increase of people that decided to do homesteading and victory gardens in 2020 because they were home and they had the time. There was kind of a reduction of the seed storage with most companies because so many people were buying stuff that they didn't have enough for the commercial growers to get everything they needed. So I know that companies like Johnny's, Fedco, I noticed was also doing that, have limited their ordering right now to commercial growers or people that had commercial growing accounts. And we've been buying from them for 18 years. So luckily we were in that category. So I was still able to get a lot of what I wanted, but I did have to go elsewhere for my tomatoes, which is okay. Next year I'll just get on earlier, or maybe I'll find out that these seeds are comparable as far as their germination and taste and all that stuff. So High Mowing, we order from them occasionally. I haven't looked into them this year because I found everything I needed. So I don't know if they're selling just commercially or to home growers as well. So you may want to check those out. We only buy from companies that have predominantly organic seeds, definitely untreated seeds. Sometimes things are hard to find in untreated, especially things like sweet corn. We are not certified organic. We have been in the past. We have just chosen not to be. The paperwork and the record keeping is just beyond what I feel like I'm capable of doing on my own right now. So I'm choosing not to do that. And I have surveyed my customers and they feel like they trust me. Most of my customers have known me for 18 years and they can ask me how I grow my stuff. So primarily since I direct market everything instead of doing wholesaling or shipping of things, I know my customer base and they trust me and we have a good relationship. So at this point, I don't need to certify organic. I may recertify the orchard just because that separates me a lot from conventional orchards, and they're really not organic orchards in Ohio. I am going to do my best to keep the orchard in organic production. It is really hard in Ohio to grow a nice quality of organic apples, but that's why I'm adding the ducks this year to the orchard. I've got 75 ducks coming on March 16th, actually. I'm adding them as another layer of pest control. So I'm kind of hoping that with those guys, it can help me reduce my need for some of the pesticides that may not be certifiable. But I always have and will always strive to follow the organic rules and only use things that are on the OMRI list. All right, so let's see what we've got this year. I'm doing significantly less produce than we've ever done. When we first started here, we were growing 30 acres of produce, my husband and I, and we had a CSA for about 275 families at one point, and that's a lot of produce. And after he got diagnosed with cancer, which would be like 6.5 years ago now, we really backed off on produce, and we eventually stopped doing the CSA. Did wholesale for a while, which increased the amount of certain crops we were growing. So we may have only grown 5 crops, but we grew tons of them. And now we've kind of, you know, now that it's just me, I chose things that I feel like I can do on my own and that I have the equipment for. So let's see. Some of these are for all seasons. I ordered everything that I needed. Let's see, I have mini broccoli, which is the sprouting broccoli. It's not like broccolini, like the real leafy stuff, but it's broccoli that grows little sprouts off of the stems, and you break them off and bunch them together. And I haven't done this for a few years, but I'm going to try it in the fall and see if that works for me. I did buy some lavender seed because I'd like to start a little perennial area in the backyard. I've got some parsley, basil. I grow quite a bit of basil. My friend Stephanie, who I'm raising the chicks for, she has a commercial kitchen and she makes pesto to sell at farmers markets. So I do provide some of the basil to her for her pesto, and tomatoes for soups and things like that. Tiara from Johnny's is my favorite. Green cabbage. We've grown Tiara for years. It's a perfect size. It's not too heavy. They're usually under 2 pounds. Really, really sweet cabbage. And then sun gold cherry tomatoes. I do not grow cherry tomatoes to pick. I grow cherry tomatoes to sell the plants, because I do sell mostly tomato and pepper plants in the spring for the first few weeks of May and June. So for about 6 weeks, the beginning of May to the beginning of June, I grow tomato plants because that's really all I have to sell at market other than cheese. And then I have winter squash and pumpkins. So I've got Bonbon, which is a buttercup. We haven't grown buttercups in quite a long time, but I love them. They have the best fluffy, dry texture to them. They're so good. Cinnamon Girl, which is a pie pumpkin. And then a butternut, which we sell a lot of butternut. All right, so I've got 3 packets here of sugar buns, sweet corn. We do a decent amount of sweet corn, or we have done a decent amount of sweet corn here and there. We've tried it. It's pretty difficult to do organically. It's really difficult to keep raccoons from eating basically your entire crop. So since I'm gonna have the turkeys with electric fence right up on the hill, I am planning on putting the corn in the first rows closest to the turkeys, because then I can extend electric fence all the way around it and hopefully prevent that big amount of loss we have right when we get these beautiful sweet corn ears, and then suddenly the next morning you come out and the raccoons have decimated your crop. So I'm hoping I can get on top of that because I'll have the electric fence available to me really close. And we also do something different with the sweet corn. We transplant them. So we start them from seed in the greenhouse, and you'll be seeing me do that eventually if the snow ever goes away. And then we transplant it directly into the ground, and that helps us get ahead of the weeds, because our only method of weed control really is cultivation. So if my corn is already 4 inches tall, it's much easier for me to cultivate and keep the weeds down to get a better stand on the corn. See, I've also got some bush beans, and I got the flat, like Roma type beans because they're easier to pick. And me and the kids love green beans, and I don't mind picking them, but I'm definitely going with the ones that are easier to pick because I have less time. Let's see, celery. Celery was the #1 request when I did a survey of my customers as far as what produce they have a hard time finding at our local markets, and they said celery. So we've done celery in the past, and it grows pretty well here actually. It just takes a really long time. So this guy says 80 days. It's usually never ready in 80 days. However, when our celery's done, they're like 2 feet tall and they're gorgeous, and can't complain about that. So that was all I was able to get from Johnny's, unfortunately. I do have seed left from last year. I have delicata squash, which is one of our most popular squashes, and I have some tomato varieties left over that usually I don't have trouble germinating seed from the previous year. Let's see. So I've got Brandywines. I've got some Beef Masters, which are just like a hybrid big slicer. Mostly I'm growing those for plants for people to buy for their own gardens. I've got a Cherokee Green, shishito peppers. Shishito peppers are really popular, and I didn't grow them last year just because it slipped my mind to grow them, and I had so many people kind of borderline angry with me for not doing it. So I did remember to get shishito pepper seed this year. I do sell quite a few plants for the shishitos too. So then we've got a pink beefsteak, which is you know, going to be a really big slicer, but pink instead of red. Let's see, a lot of these are duplicates of the same variety. So another Brandywine. My favorite heirloom to grow is speckled Roman or striped Roman. It's like a paste tomato, and it has orange and yellow and red stripes on it, and they are absolutely delicious, and they're heavy and meaty, and they make the best sauce, and it's just so good. And actually I sell a lot of those when we are selling tomatoes at market. People really like them. We used to get a variety that was similar, you know, some of the heirloom varieties have different names, but it was called Roman Candle, and it really, you know, if you flipped it over, it had looked like a flame on a candle, which is cool. So then we've got yellow Brandywines, and I got a couple of varieties that are named different from what I'm normally used to. I did get a red cherry to sell plants because people are always asking for just a regular red cherry. Roma tomatoes are really popular for plants. Purple tomato called Cherokee Purple. It's super delicious. And Valencia, which is another orange heirloom tomato. They're nice and lower acid and really meaty. They put just a few peppers in each packet, so I end up getting peppers and tomatoes. Like, looks like the packets are only 100 seeds. So sometimes if I needed 300 seeds, I got 3 packets of each. Something new for me this year is ground cherries. They're like a tomatillo looking thing. They're real small though, like smaller than a cherry tomato. They have a husk like a tomatillo, and then they're yellow when they're ripe. And they taste like a cross between a pineapple and a cherry tomato and maybe a sour cherry. Like, they're an interesting flavor, but they're so good. And you can only get them for a little bit of time, but they fall off the plant when they're ready. Like, the ideal eating time for them is when they fall off the plant. And gathering things off of the ground isn't like super kosher for farmers market sales. So I'm going to try something in the greenhouse. I'm going to try growing them in the air upside down, like people grow tomatoes upside down. And I'm going to try, you guys can watch me do this. It'll be interesting to see. I'm going to try putting a net underneath them to catch the ground cherries as they ripen. And then all I'll have to do is like open a section of the net to harvest them. I don't know if it's going to work, but it'll definitely be interesting to try at the very least. So that's the newest thing. I do actually have tomatillo seed also, which is back ordered. I get the really large tomatillos. I did have a couple of things that were back ordered, so I'll be expecting to get a little bit of extra stuff. But anyway, this is what I am planning on growing as soon as I get the plastic on my greenhouse, which I have the plastic, but now we have 2 feet of snow coming in the next 2 days, so that's just not going to happen. As soon as I get the plastic on the greenhouse, we'll be setting up a brooder in there for the ducks and the turkeys, and we will be getting it set up for seed starting, and starting at the very least the tomato plants that I'm going to be selling at farmers market early, because those really need to be started soon. So you can look forward to those videos. And thanks for joining me today, and I hope you guys are staying happy and healthy and warm. See you later.